We are going to look at Samuel Kanyon Doe, a former president of Liberia. He was a unique leader in more than two ways. First of all, he was the first indigenous Liberian to be the president. You see, he was the 21st president, but the other 20 presidents were not indigenous Liberian citizens. What I mean is, when the USA was banning slavery, they had some land in Africa, or they had some colony in Africa. So they decided that any slave who has been freed and wants to go back to Africa, he or she would go to Liberia, the US territory in Africa. So they came. If you look at the Liberian flag, it is similar to the American flag. But the American flag has 48 stars. When America started, it started with 13 states. That is why the white and red lines are 13. And they had 13 stars. So every time a new state came in, they would increase the number of stars. And when they reached 48, they stopped there. So when more states joined, they still retained 48 stars. But in Liberia, they had one star. And this star was representing the Africans who were in the USA, who previously were slaves, but had been freed and decided to go back to Africa and form their own state. When they came to Africa, they found some few indigenous tribes. But throughout the history of Liberia, there has always been that problem that the Americans, those who were previously slaves in America, they have assumed themselves to be superior to the indigenous Africans who forever had been staying in Liberia. So the 20 presidents who were there, from the first president up to the one that Sgt Doe overthrew, were from former slave people. The natives were just that way. These African Americans have problems even up to today, at least those who remained there, because we have other Africans who came later but are not descendants of slaves. You'll find that when you are an African person and you go to the USA, you'll get a lot of problems from those people, because they believe that the affirmative action that is set aside for black Americans or Africans, they feel that you have come to eat into their pie. So on one side, Samuel Kanyon Doe was the first indigenous Liberian to be the president. The second thing is that he overthrew the government when he was a master sergeant. A master sergeant in the American system is similar to the British system, which is used in most African countries, that is called regimental sergeant major. So when Coup started taking part in Africa and other developing countries, it used to be work of the generals. Talk of General FIFA, talk of General and so on, and brigadiers. So those people used to overthrow governments. Then later came colonels or colonels, people like Colonel Nasser of Egypt. Then we have Colonel Gaddafi of Libya. But Colonel Gaddafi, it was a bit different. When Colonel Gaddafi overthrew the king, he was a lieutenant. He was a lieutenant, but he liked the ideology of Colonel Nasser. So immediately he overthrew the Libyan government in 1969. He promoted himself from lieutenant to a full colonel. And forever, for the rest of his term, he never promoted himself further. He stayed as a colonel until he ceased being the president. Why didn't he want to be anything else? It's because he felt that colonel is a holy rank because of Colonel Nasser. So I was saying it started with generals, it went to brigadiers, it went to colonels. Colonels, even people like Lieutenant Colonel Yakub Gowon of Nigeria. So it went up to that level of colonels and colonels and colonels. Very few people overthrew the government when they were captain. But Jerry Rawling of Ghana, being a lieutenant in the Air Force, he was a flight lieutenant, he overthrew the government. So it went down to the level of lieutenants. And then here is an NCO, a master sergeant who overthrew a president. So those people, the airmen who were planning to overthrow the Moi government in 1982, they came up with an idea. First of all, Ochuka was the CMC of the private mess or other ranks mess. And you see, CMC is a coordinator. Any person visiting the camp, let's say the commander-in-chief, or even if King Charles was to visit a place like Isili, you'll find that on his right hand is the CMC. And then on his left is the CDF, Chief of the Defense Forces. And then you find that the CMC is just next to the King Charles. But the Lieutenant Colonel who is in charge of Moi Air Base is very far from the King. So CMC is a very important person and is somebody who is elected by people of his rank. So you go to Corporal's Mess, the Corporals elect their own CMC. Sergeant's Mess and even Officer's Mess. So, Senior Sergeant Ochuka was the CMC, and they said if the countries have always been ruled by generals, brigadiers, colonels, majors, captains, and lieutenants, sergeants, why don't we have our own who is a constable? A constable in the military is a private. And you see, before Moi was overthrown or attempted coup, there was an OAU meeting. And military people had a problem. They asked, now he is a sergeant, a master sergeant, and do officers, commissioned officers in the Kenya military salute him? And they were told, you are not saluting a master sergeant, but you are saluting a head of state. So you can see that one motivated the airmen to appoint a person of a lower rank. Now, the problem he had, when he overthrew, he came from a tribe called Kran tribe. Kran tribe is one of the 3 tribes there. And during the time when he was ruling the country and appointing most of he was favoring the people of that clan. And that is why everybody turned against him and overthrew him. He was overthrown by forces which were organized by an American, Liberian, Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor also has a long story that may need another episode. How did he come to prominence? In the first place, Samuel Kanyon Doe didn't like the military, but he wanted to be educated. He wanted to be educated, but then he came to know that the military used to offer scholarship for somebody to join secondary school. So he joined the military with the express intention of the military offering him a scholarship to join a secondary school. But what the military did, the military took him to a battalion. It never took him to study or be taken to a secondary school. And what did he do? He started studying through correspondence, and he got his Form 4 certificate through correspondence. He became so unpopular that when they overthrew him, and you know, you're so powerful, and so he used to have a lot of spies. It I think Kenyans during Nyayo House days know that. I mean, will understand that. He used to have spies everywhere, every time, and people could not believe that people could organize for him to be overthrown. And he was overthrown and killed. He was cut into pieces. He was cut into pieces, what we call katakata. And you could see pieces like when you have slaughtered a goat and maybe you want to boil it or something. That is how he was slaughtered, and the head was left. And people could not believe that the powerful individual and the person who everybody feared was dead. People could not believe it, and so his body parts were placed on top of a wheelbarrow. And each morning, the wheelbarrow would be taken around Monrovia Street. Monrovia Streets. Nairobi people, there's a street called Monrovia. They used to be taken along Monrovia Streets, and the head would be picked, and people say, look at this head. Is it not him? They continued that way, and you know, the body got rotted. And nobody knows where the body parts were taken, although rumors has it that the body parts were fed to dogs. And that, viewers, is what today we will learn about Samuel Kanyon Doe. The other thing unique about him that I had forgotten is that immediately, you know, he was a master sergeant. He ruled for 6 years, 86 to 90. That is 4 years or 5 years. But in those 5 years, he promoted himself from the rank of master sergeant to a 5-star general. Even if it were that way, you know, all heads of states are 5-star generals. That, viewers, is about Samuel Kanyon Doe, the first indigenous Liberian to rule that country from the tribe of Clan.